Well, most people know that our horses live outside on pasture and on the track system year-round, and they love it. But we do actually have tie stalls in the barn. Today we're going to look at how we designed them, what we use them for, and how they can benefit you. First question is, why did we design tie stalls? Well, we need to bring these horses up from the track or out in pasture and harness them up because we're a working farm. So we need a place to harness the horses. We also need a place to do farrier work. And we do that in the center aisle, but we line up all the horses in preparation for farrier work. We also feed them mineral every day in their little tub up there. So there's a lot of different uses for these tie stalls, and they're pretty much used every single day because we do mineral the horses every day, although we don't harness every day. Next, we talk about spacing. Now, we just took a spot in our barn that was available, and we used it. But we looked at the spacing, and generally the consensus was, for a draft, you're looking at 5 feet wide and at least 10 feet long. Now, those are minimum dimensions. We actually have 11 feet from the wall to this concrete pad. And our stalls divided up equally into 5.5-foot sections. The last stall on the end, we actually made a tack room. So we only made 3 of these. Originally, these were built for horses that were 18-1 and 18-2 and about 2,000 pounds apiece. These horses are much smaller. They're from anywhere from 15-2 to 16 hands. They're on the end. So they're a lot smaller horses. So you can see the width. They have plenty of room side to side. But we elected to do these drop-down poles, and you'll see why later. But these poles are almost like the pole on a forecart or an implement. So the horses are used to these 4x4 poles there, and it's a barrier for them. And our horses are well behaved. They generally don't push on them at all. You also want to look at head space. And the head space here is plenty for our 18-2 Belgians, and obviously probably a little bit too much for the girls. So on the end stall, you'll see that we actually put a shelf over there, and we wanted to make sure that that horse didn't get tied up in the buckets or anything like that. So really, about 16 hands is all you want down here. Lastly, this bar right here was put in because our 18-2 Belgian that would sit here would actually reach her head over and eat out of the neighbor's feed bin. So you got to watch that too. Make sure they can't reach too high or too far. So we're going to pull the horses out of here and give you a better overall look at what it looks like without the horses. So let's talk about the front end of the horse. The design of the feed manger is extremely important. There's a lot of details you need to think about. First of all, how they are attached. This needs to be short enough that they don't back up too far or get a leg over it and get trapped, but long enough they can get to the mineral or to the water and down to the bottom of this. Also, sometimes they want to lay down. Now, another design which I think is quite nice is actually people put a chain through the bottom of the weight on it and have it come through this wall. So when they stand up and eat, the weight pulls the chain down so it's not in their weight. But if they want to lay down, if they're going to be here overnight, which we never do, but if they're going to be here for a long period of time, it allows them to actually lay down in the stall and they don't get tangled in it because as soon as they get up, that weight pulls the chain back down. It's quite an ingenious design. Now, we have the mineral bin over here. When we bring them back in and we feed them mineral, we have these little lids because we have chickens, and the chickens will go in and they'll eat up the mineral. So we try to cover up that mineral with a little lid, and then my daughter comes in the morning and just pulls the lids off and hangs them back up on the wall there. We also have water on the other side. You got to be careful with this because the water can actually slosh in and get the hay wet. so you got to keep it dry underneath, and always have a drain hole in the bottom so that if water does spill, it drains right out the bottom. This front wall is slanted in because you want the horse to be able to walk right up to it and feed, and any feed that they drop out of their mouth, you don't want it to fall here in the stall, you want it to fall back into the manger. So we can look down inside here and see that sloped area. There's a drain hole for the water, and you can't see it, it's under this hay here. But it's a nice flat surface in the bottom because that allows me to clean it out really well. I've actually got a piece of plywood down there, and I can scrape that out, clean it out, get all the water out of it, and make sure it doesn't get moldy because they'll also dribble grain or mineral down in there. So you want to make sure that you can easily clean that out. We want a very, very stout, very strong structure because our original horses were 18.2, 18.1 and 18.2. They were Belgians, extremely strong. We had one named Bill, and Bill would destroy everything. He didn't mean to. He wasn't a mean horse or a wild horse. He just would walk into things and it would break. So I have a lumber mill. I know that everybody doesn't, and so I milled all this out of red and white oak, and so this is a huge red oak beam that goes into the ground and is concreted in and then tied into the ceiling, into the cross post there. And then all of this is most of this is milled white and red oak, so it's very stout. And it's hard to build with, but the horses will not move it, and they won't damage it inadvertently. Some horses chew wood, and you're familiar with it. If your horse does it, you know what I'm talking about. It was recommended to me to put a 2-inch steel pipe on the top of this right here to prevent that wood chewing. We don't leave our horses in here very long, and we've never had a problem with wood chewing, but I do have a slot here that if I need to put a pipe here, I can, or you can put a metal cover on. You could also cap the side rails here too. Again, if that's a problem with your horse, you realize that you don't want to leave this wood necessarily exposed, especially if you're going to be leaving that horse in for a long period of time. But we just never do that. And now let's talk about dividers. A lot of different designs for dividers. In fact, when we first saw a tie stall design, they actually had a solid butt wall here. And that wall was about, I'd say 36 inches high. And then it went up at an angle to where it was high up here so their heads couldn't meet together. We decided against the wall for several different reasons. One of which, we want this tie stall, or this series of tie stalls, to be convertible into a single stall or 2 stalls or whatever we need. And we've done that quite often. So ours is simply a 4x4 pole in the middle, which is kind of like the tongue on a wagon or something like that, and it swings back and forth, and it's connected by the chain there that goes up top. Now you can quickly disconnect that chain at the top, and if you come back to the front here, you'll see that you can disconnect this. You pull this pin out, and the entire thing drops to the floor. In fact, I can show you that here. That pops right out and drops to the floor. Now we use that when we want to take these dividers down. We can take both dividers down, put a gate up at the end. If we have a sick horse, if we have a lame horse, if we have a sick goat or pig or anything like that, within 10 minutes I can convert 3 tie stalls into one relatively large stall. And we just put water and food in one of them and leave the other ones. So I really like this removable divider option. If we have a more aggressive horse or something, we can tie butt chains to the end of this and actually hold this in place just a little bit better. It would be just like in a stock trailer or something, or a horse trailer where you walk in and you throw the butt chain across. It's going to keep this divider in place a little bit better, but we haven't had to do that. Now when it comes to flooring, there's millions of options out there, and I'm not going to dictate what you want to use. We tend to pamper our horses a little bit here, so instead of concrete, which is very easy to clean, very fast and very easy to clean, we chose, well, we didn't really choose it. It was here and we were happy with it. There was an Equitile floor here when we bought this barn. This Equitile is interlocking hard plastic, and it was filled with gravel, and then on top of that there was a little bit of sand. It's a very nice surface, and these tiles, I think they're pretty pricey, but they are extremely effective because it keeps the floor level. And even if you have a horse that paws or something, it's not, did I hit little Rosa over there? Anyway, if you've got a horse that paws or something, they won't paw through this. And it's very good stuff. And I'm sure it goes by a million different names, but this particular brand was Equitile, and it was here when we bought it. Now, we don't necessarily clean up the old hay and stuff. Again, it's a soft surface, but we do clean up the manure, and sometimes we use what's called PDZ, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with that. We'll throw some PDZ down to neutralize the urine that's in the backside. But for the most part, this is a soft, pliable surface for the horse, and it's very durable. And for us, it's very easy to clean. We clean it out with manure forks, and every once in a while, we'll clean the entire thing out, and then we'll just let that old hay build up again for another soft surface. When I threw this together, I just took some wiring from a light that was in the center of the barn and moved it here and put a 48-inch LED shop light above there. And I'm really glad I did that, because as much as we had planned on backing the horses out, putting them on the cross ties and doing a lot of work out there, we realized because our stalls were big enough, we could do a lot of work in here. And my wife actually does a lot of farrier work inside the stalls, and we do all our harnessing inside the stalls. And so I would always go back to saying, well, maybe we should put a light at each one of the stalls to prevent shadows, because it's really come in handy to have a nice lighted area back here and to be able to do a lot more detailed work that we would otherwise take them out and put them into the cross ties for. So another consideration we have is airflow. You want airflow for cooling, obviously, in the warmer months, but you also want it to reduce or eliminate condensation in the colder months. So for airflow in this area, we've got great airflow in the main section of the barn, but back here it can kind of stagnate a little bit. Luckily, we have a window on this side that allows air to come in and gently go across the horses' backs. And then on the other side, we have a fan up there that can actually draw a little bit more air and blow a little bit more air over their backs. And we've actually cut that door in the back in half, and the top half is now just a 2x4 woven wire fence, actually. And that allows it to come in from the two main doors of the front barn all the way through the breezeway and out. So again, you want to be able to control that airflow, because for us, in the summer, obviously it's a heat issue and a fly issue, and possibly ammonia if you didn't get your PDZ down. But in the winter time, after our horses work real hard, let's say they're out plowing snow, they're going to be really hot and sweaty. And so I want to bring them in here and let them cool down slowly, maybe with cooling blankets or whatnot, before I release them out into the track. And I don't want a bunch of condensation to build up in here when I do that. Okay, once you've designed your tie stall, you've got to worry about or consider in your design how to get the horses in and how to get the horses out. The recommended distance of the alleyway behind the tie stall for us was 6 feet, and we actually have more than that now, but generally, as we back out on this concrete, we have a golf cart parked there, which only gives them about 4 to 5 feet of space to back out. So when your horses are tie stalled on a regular basis, they get extremely proficient at backing, and a lot of people really have trouble backing their horse. Well, if you build a tie stall and you back them out every single day, you're not going to have that problem anymore. And it's really critical for us because we drive horses, so the horse has to be very proficient at backing out. But think about how they back out and how they egress. The other thing you could think about is some people have a front exit with an odd design up front here that I've seen in different drawings and internet things, and we can't really do that because we have a wall and dirt on the other side of that. Also, as they're backing up, think about obstacles they may run into. We have hooks where we keep their grazing muzzles and lead lines, and these hooks, you can buy these at a lot of different places. They're just flexible rubber hooks. If the horse runs into it, it doesn't hurt, but it can hold about 5 or so pounds. It'll hold a lead rope, it'll hold a bridle or something like that. It really doesn't hold anything more than that. But the thing is, it's a hook that won't get caught on the horse or the harness. And that's a big deal for us because typically when we're backing them out, they are fully harnessed up and we can't have anything catch on that. Well, I hope this has been informative. We certainly had a wonderful journey learning about tie stalls and coming up with a design, and luckily what we built is exactly what we wanted, and man, it has been a tremendous help on this farm with our draft horses and driving. And everybody loves it, even little Rosa. Right, girl?
Isn't that comfy?